how much protein do I actually need and why does everyone keep talking about it? I'm going to say something maybe slightly controversial, coach, that
Okay.
feel free to push back against.
Mm.
I've been thinking this for about a week and a half. And what was funny was a few days ago, I actually saw Jordan Sayat post the exact same thing.
Mm.
I was like, okay, it's not just me. That's good. I think protein has become overrated. What do you think?
I think that there's such a high emphasis on protein and people don't recognize the thermic effect of it to the point that you're pushing so much protein and not focusing on the other macronutrients to the point where you're wondering why you have no energy. It's because you have no carbohydrates in your system. And that's partially why you're feeling so depleted energy wise as
Yeah,
well. So I would agree with you.
totally. Yeah. It's almost as if high protein has become the new low carb. Not quite, because anybody such as this person who is asking about how much protein they actually need, they're almost certainly not eating enough protein.
Mm.
So sure, for some people, protein is very underrated. I think in the fitness industry as a whole, with the messaging on social media, and even in shit like Starbucks putting protein in their coffee now, when that happens, yeah, okay, the protein has now become very much overrated. And I think, and for a non-vegan, this is going to sound kind of weird, I think plant-based food is very underrated when it comes to weight loss and health, hunger control. And the reason this has come to mind is because the last, I want to say 10 days, I think, I have really got into overnight oats for the first time ever.
Right.
And it's a very, very high volume, but fairly, low to moderate calories, lower protein than I've been having. I'm still in my protein range that I want to aim for. And we'll go into the protein range in a second. But I'm definitely very much at the lower end of the protein range. And my hunger has really dropped a ton from whacking up the plant-based food, really, really making a big effort with fiber. Like I'm getting 28 grams of fiber before I even have dinner.
Mm. Guys.
And so for me, what I have really noticed from cutting down on the protein, but still being within a healthy range, really focusing on the plant-based food, my appetite, and also how I'm feeling day to day with my energy levels as well, my focus, it is way better than before. Way better.
Mm.
What do you think about that, coach?
I think, like anything else, you need everything in moderation, right? So if you have super high protein, it's not going to be detrimental by any means, but we know that if
Cool.
you're animal based in terms of your nutritional intake, okay, if you're getting adequate protein, you're probably going to be getting adequate fat intake as well. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So in that same light, then your fat content is probably going to be much higher, which is fine. Like fat's not bad. We know this. However, if you're having high protein and then you're having adequate fat intake or having higher than normal fat intake that you may need, that means calories are going to be higher. The only way you're going to be able to burn that fat is going to be through carbohydrate, right? Because fat burns on a carbohydrate driven flame. So if you're lacking a particular macronutrient like carbohydrates because you're scared of carbohydrates, which you shouldn't be, then the main energy source that you're using to fuel your activity is now nearly non-existent. Whenever I'm in any sort of cutting phase or doing a fat loss phase, protein goes not down, but it goes to a moderate to low on the lower end of the range that I would have. Carbohydrates go up, and that's how I navigate being in a fat loss phase. Earlier this year, I did one that was lower on the carb end, and I tried that out, and it worked pretty well for me. However, I did notice there were times where energy was quite low, but I also
Yeah.
kept in mind, okay, but my calories are low too. In the past, when I've done it with higher carbohydrates, I found that energy was a lot better, sleep was better, keeping in mind as well, you know, carbohydrates are going to facilitate an insulin increase in terms of your system and the hormones that get produced from it. Insulin is naturally going to facilitate more testosterone production, which is going to increase the amount of muscle you can build as well. So at the end
Which
of
is
the day,
true for
you
both
actually,
genders, by the way. This is not just like a male exclusive thing. Testosterone isn't like the male hormone. Women also have and need testosterone. Just to clear that up before anybody asks questions.
Thank you. I appreciate you
Yeah.
saying that. And keeping in mind as well, like all of this stuff, you say this best. I think this is something I've definitely stolen from you. Nutrition is a math equation, right? So you have to adjust accordingly. You can't put something so high in one direction and not expect any sort of result that isn't going to be facilitated by that imbalance in the equation. Could you live exclusively on protein? Yeah, probably. Could you live exclusively on carbohydrates? Yeah, definitely. You can live on all these things. It all comes down to the total caloric number. And there's
Yeah.
research to support that you could still build muscle on carbohydrate only. Yeah, it's going to be more challenging, but you're still going to have protein in carbohydrates as well. That's why there's diets that vegan diets and vegan athletes that are successful and still are able to build muscle as well. I know it's a long-winded answer, but I hope that answers that for you.
Yeah. You mean there's protein in carb-centric foods? Like, even if
Yeah,
you
of
go and buy,
course.
like, a bagel, there is protein in a bagel. There is protein in oats,
Of
okay?
course.
It's not exclusively, "Oh, there's only carbs in bread. There's only carbs in oats." Of course, there are other macronutrients as well. It's just that's the main macro.
Yeah,
Um,
and
so yeah,
even in the plant-based stuff, like we know that there's protein in plant sources. However, it's a little bit more challenging to get to that protein because the majority of that protein does live in the fiber that we're unable to break down. We've
yeah,
mentioned this before in the podcast. Usually it's about if you see a plant-based protein source, it's usually about half the value of like an animal-based protein source. So if you have 10 grams
yeah.
of animal versus 10 grams of plant-based, their plant-based is going to equate to about 5 grams of
Mm.
protein
I've
generally.
seen studies that dispute that claim recently.
Mm,
Um We're still very much in, like, the learning stage, right, when it comes to plant-based. I think it also depends on the specific plant-based protein too, because they will have different, um, biological values. Is that the phrase? The BV of each one,
yeah.
and how bioavailable each protein is. Um, Again, we're gonna go into um, the protein range to aim for in a second.
Mm,
But I would say, yeah, I agree with you, coach, that if you are plant based, the range that we're going to talk about in a second, I would aim for the higher end of the range for that reason that you just gave. And we also know that you can get very good results, whether it's in terms of building strength or muscle or losing fat, being plant based. You can still do that, no problem at all. It just takes a little bit more effort and maybe slightly higher protein intake for you compared with somebody who also consumes animal products.
yeah. And I think what you had just mentioned is most important to realize in this conversation too. Like this same, when you're looking at any sort of protein intake, protein is going to have building blocks that help to build your muscle that are called amino acids. And to have an adequate and bioavailable source of protein, you want to have varieties of protein. So if you're animal based, you're going to want to have red meat, you're going to want to have poultry, seafood, shellfish, all these things, barring you don't have any dietary restrictions. And the same goes for the plant based stuff too. So you're going to want to have, if you're supplementing, for example, you're going to want to have corn based, soy based. You're going to want to have different varieties of those proteins because you're going to get different amino acid profiles that are going to be helpful for facilitating different either muscle building or different things that your body needs to be able to build the things that are required. So like there's protein in your hair, for example. There's going to be protein obviously in your amino acids in your hair, amino acids in your muscles. All these different things are going to require those building blocks in different ways that don't just come from one source.
Totally. It reminds me of what Charles Poliquin said about what the best diet is. The best diet is vegan with meat, which which basically means like just get a variety.
I love that.
Yeah, he was awesome. Yeah. So yeah, I've really found my hunger levels are in a great spot. Energy levels are in a very good spot with more carbs, more plant-based food, and lowering my protein while still staying in the same range recently. I've
Mm.
even just gone, I think I've just went, I want to say 5 days without having a single protein shake. Like all of my protein was from purely from food, not from any kind of protein powder.
Yeah, I've noticed too, especially because I'm in a surplus right now and I'm in a bit of
Mm,
a muscle, not a bit, I'm in a muscle building phase at the moment. You know,
mm,
I don't really have the need to really explore a protein supplement at the moment because I'm getting
totally.
plenty of it. It's more so
Yeah.
about the total calories I'm looking to improve. And sometimes I just don't want it. And that's okay too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I guess, yeah, for a lot of people, protein is or has become overrated. I would say if
Mm,
you are in the range, which again, I'm probably going to give you in a second, then I would say that staying in the bottom end of the range while making a bigger effort than you have been with eating fruits and vegetables and starches, it's going to give you the best of both worlds. You're getting enough protein for what you need, and you're getting all of those nutrients from the plants too. And I don't think it's a coincidence that having done this, and it may well be because it's helped me, stay in a calorie deficit more consistently. I hit a new scale low yesterday in my weight loss phase right now. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think dropping the protein and maybe changing the overall quality of what I'm eating, I think it's giving me better energy. It's helping me stop eating earlier. It's leading to a better quality of sleep and therefore better recovery, which is reducing the water retention. And therefore the number on the scale is slightly lower. So it's not that doing this has like magically made me lose more fat. It's what the second, third, and fourth order impacts are of making that change.
Yeah. So what I'd be curious to know for yourself as well is what has sleep quality been like? You mentioned it's better. How's it? How are you finding it?
I would say it's been better recently. Yeah. There's only been in the last 10 days, I would say there's maybe been one night of poor sleep for no particular reason.
Okay.
Like where I just woke up a couple of times. And it also may have been because of like a noise that woke me up or something else like that. There was like a couple of wake ups for like, why am I awake? I don't need to use the washroom. What's going on here? And the other time where I had poor sleep was because my daughter came down, which is like, okay, that's fine. It's part of being a parent. So I do feel, and also according to my Apple Watch and my sleep scores, it's been pretty high recently, the last 10 days. I'd have to like zoom out and have a look at the last few weeks. But I think what has been the biggest impact from doing this and having less hunger during the day is I'm not getting to that after dinner phase. I think, you know what, I've got some calories left and I'm still hungry. I'm going to have this snack. Because as we both know, Coach, if we eat too close to bedtime, it is going to negatively impact our quality of sleep if it is too many calories.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So things overall,
I was going to mention, so when you think of this too, just from, and this is just me kind of thinking out loud here, you're mentioning you're getting almost 30 grams of protein or 30 grams of fiber rather. Okay. So you're getting 30 grams of fiber before dinner. Okay.
So if we also include dinner, I'm hitting like the high 30s.
Perfect. So you're getting more fiber, which is going to lead to better digestion and better gut health, which is then going to translate to better blood sugar moderation, but better blood sugar management. And then you're going to be you're mentioning more carbohydrates, which is going to lead to an insulin increase, which is then going to help reduce your cortisol levels. So you're going to be able to get better sleep in the evening. So all these things trend to you having all the things that you're noticing from just like a theoretical perspective, right? Whether or not
I also have some data as well that you'll appreciate here, Coach.
Go for it.
Monday, just went to the doctor for like just a follow-up appointment for something, nothing major. The doctor's office is up 2 flights of stairs. So went up 2 flights of stairs, sat down for a few minutes, called into the doctor's office, sat down, had a chat, put the blood pressure cuff on me. I was talking during it, which you're not supposed to, because I think it can artificially increase blood pressure and maybe even resting heart rate too if you are talking. But even then, having gone up 2 flights of stairs, having been talking while the doctor was taking my blood pressure, my blood pressure was 125/78 and a resting heart rate of 60. And that is without the 5 minutes of just sitting there, breathing slowly and relaxing, which you're technically supposed to do to make sure it's accurate. And apparently as well, you go to a doctor's office, you're kind of a little bit anxious. There's the whole white coat syndrome as well. So they assume that everybody's heart rate fairly is going to be slightly elevated in that particular medical setting. 125/78 with a resting heart rate of 60.
That's amazing, bro.
Of course,
Good job.
fitness. Thanks, Coach. Yeah. Of course, my workouts as well are going to have played a role in that too. But I don't think it's a coincidence that I crushed those 2 metrics just over a week after really bumping those things up. And it wasn't like I went from no plant food to like a ton of it. I was also already eating like by volume. The majority of my food was from plant-based food. But it just increased even more. Fiber increased even more. Just more consistent with that, let's say.
Do you remember what your previous blood pressure and resting heart rate was prior to making that change by chance?
Not in the doctor's office, no. I don't. Okay. But I have, it's been, it's been about that Actually, about 125 over 78. That kind of like range
Mm.
at home in perfect conditions.
Okay, great. So if there's like a slight elevation from just the environmental changes plus the stairs, all
Yeah.
the things you're mentioning, time of day, etc., then
Yeah.
that would imply, yeah, like we know that the most accurate resting heart rate is the one that you get right after you wake up, and then it's going to elevate slightly, right? Maybe
Yeah.
5-10 points. So if that's where it was when you're at home, then you're in the doctor's office, kind of going on with your day already. Then you'd
They're
be
just
able
like,
to imply that yeah,
yes.
it's gone down.
I think that's a fair assumption, especially after, okay, it was like a 15-minute drive there in traffic. Funny, oh shit, am I going to be late to this appointment or not? I wasn't expecting this traffic just now. So if there's stress, emotional stress from the traffic, then we have the physical stress of then going up 2 flights of stairs,
Mm.
then taking it. Yeah. Anyway, we should probably talk about protein, right?
Well, I think we've now put people on a cliffhanger for the last 17 minutes about what the ranges are. So you're gonna
If you
out
are
with that
still
already,
listening.
man.
Anyway, so the general protein range that we recommend is you take your target weight in pounds, you multiply that by 0.7, then you take your target weight in pounds and multiply by 1. You want to be between those numbers. So if your goal weight is 150 pounds, 150 multiplied by 0.7 is 105, 150 multiplied by 1 is 150. So your protein target is somewhere between 105 and 150. That's the
Mm.
goal. So for me, my current goal weight, I'm sitting in the high 180s right now. I'm aiming for somewhere around 175. So for me, between 122 and 170 is the goal. And
Mm.
I'm coming in at about 130 per day at the moment. And I was way nearer to like 175, even like 180 to 190 on some days. And
Think
we need
what's
that to make sure that we don't lose any muscle while we are in a calorie deficit, to promote recovery from the strength training, and to keep hunger under control.
yeah. I, Most people who are listening to this, that number might sound like a lot.
Yeah,
The thing to keep in mind is as well asking yourself, do you even know how many grams of protein you're currently getting?
good
And
question.
if you don't know, then do yourself a favor and track just your protein intake for the week. Get an idea,
Yeah,
or even for a few days, 3 days at minimum, and get a handle on what that looks like. If it's
yeah,
currently at 50 and we're saying anywhere from 100 to 150, that's going to be a massive increase.
yeah,
So the main goal with nutrition tracking, more than anything outside of just weight management, is also building it or using it as an awareness tool. So if you're at 50, aim for 60 to 70. If you're at 60 to 70, aim for 80 to 90. Slowly staircase your way up so it's not such a drastic change where you feel like, wow, now I have to add so much more protein. It feels like a bit of a lost cause or just such a high obstacle to overcome. So just using it as an awareness tool initially, and
totally.
from there, slowly building it up over time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So the long term goal is for most people like 30 to 50 grams of protein per meal,
Mm.
essentially, right? Pretty much everybody except smaller people with a fairly low goal weight, therefore needs like a 3-figure protein intake.
Hmm.
That's the way to think about it. For most people, especially, we know the kind of, most people listen to this, we know are over 40, are women. And we therefore know that because the average weight of women is lower than that of the average weight of men, we know that there seems to be, I would say, for basically 80% of the people that we work with, they need to be getting at least 100 grams of protein because we do give them a fairly wide range. Not for everybody. Of our smaller clients who are like 5 feet, 5'1", with a goal weight of like 120 to 140 or so, then yeah, they could get under 100 grams and be okay. But 8 out of 10, I would say, probably need at least 100 grams.
Yeah, I think 100 grams is a safe number for majority of the population to aim for at the end of the day, especially when it comes
Yeah.
to, muscle building, all the other things
Mm.
that protein facilitates as well in terms of, you know, hunger management, all the things that it comes with. And I think if you're not hitting that, but you're slightly under, like I wouldn't really sweat it. I think, yeah,
Yeah.
80 grams is going to be a
Yeah.
good number if you're a smaller person as well.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. And especially in the age of GLP-1s. Like protein is so important, as well as strength training, right? So protein alone is not going to prevent the muscle loss. You need the strength training. Okay, you need the strength training. Protein alone is not going to cover it. I said that twice on purpose. So you do need to make sure that you are getting sufficient protein if you are on a GLP-1. Some of the people that we work with who are using those medications sometimes find it hard to eat enough because of those medications and to therefore eat enough protein. So the general advice that I've given them is to eat the protein part of your meal first. Just like eat that part first. That way that even if, okay, you're not quite getting enough calories, at least you're getting enough protein. And somebody might be thinking, oh, well, what's the problem of not getting enough calories? Won't they lose more weight? Yes, but if the calorie deficit is too big, that can also lead to muscle loss, bone density loss. So the three things that are really important for anybody who is either losing weight or on a GLP-1 and losing weight is to get enough protein, enough calories, and to strength train. That is so important if you want to keep your muscle and your bone density. So important. And I think as well, another reason why everyone's talking about protein is because companies are seeing that they can make lots of money from putting a bit of protein in their product and market it as like the high protein version, like a high protein. I think I've seen a high protein Snickers before. I'm like, just buy the fucking candy bar. Fuck the protein. It's going to make it taste worse. If you're going to have a Snickers, just have a Snickers, okay? Get your protein from like the powders or from like actual food, please, for God's sake. Jeez. What do you think about that, Coach?
You sound pretty riled up, Coach. It sounds like you could use a Snickers.
I sure could. Jesus.
Yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, not everything fucking needs protein. And when you look at it from the source of the protein as well, it's like, oh, it's got like 20 grams of protein. Like I mentioned earlier, yeah, but it's plant-based protein. So it's really, on the lower end, which is fine. Like I think figuring out what is good marketing versus what the intent is as to what you're having behind it. At the end of the day, for myself, my philosophy is the more hands that food needs to go through to get to me is the further away I need to stay away from it in terms of processing, etc. So if it's a piece of steak, cool, great. That's like the shortest window from, where the cow is to me, I'm down for that. Great. If it's, some sort of chicken that was compressed into a shape of a chicken breast that now looks like a chicken breast because it's been processed to look that way. Okay, not my jam. I'll just go for the actual chicken, right? Or any other sort of processed food. So I think when it comes to what it is you're trying to have, making protein the main emphasis in everything that you're having is overkill. And I think this leads to more challenges for people as well, where it's like, oh, like what's the protein content? Oh, I can't have that still protein. I think if a food has anywhere from like, if out of every 100 calories that a food source has, it has anywhere from, 7 to 10 grams, 6 to 8 grams of protein, I would say that's considered high protein. Like 60, 80% of the calories have protein. That'd be wild, right? That's super high protein. So that's not a bad way to look at it. However, like you don't need protein pasta, man. Like just have the fucking pasta. That's what you're trying to have. Like you're at the end of the day, I always look at it as, is this comparing it to a thing? Because if it's comparing it to a thing, I'm going to go for that thing that it's comparing. I don't want the thing that it's saying it's going to be better than, you know?
What I will say in defense of those high protein products is that they are a very good step one for people who are making the efforts to eat more protein. Really, really good step one as a way of becoming more intentional and aware of your protein intake without necessarily thinking, okay, I'm going to have to make such a huge change if I'm going to eat 30 grams of protein per meal, right? So for people who are just trying to incrementally work on the nutritional habits, it's a great step one. I don't think it should be your final step, but to take the high protein pasta, like, okay, cool. So if somebody really loves pasta and they can't imagine the idea of eating less pasta and more of the higher protein things that they're currently eating, yeah, get the high protein stuff once. Step one. And the good thing about that is that starts the identity shift. It starts a shift of, I am the kind of person who eats protein. I'm the kind of person who makes that choice. And the kind of person who makes that choice is probably going to be the kind of person who might start the day with some Greek yogurt. Okay, I can maybe try that instead of cereal. And the kind of person who does that maybe also adds fruit into that as well. And the kind of person who starts the day with a nice high protein, high fiber breakfast is maybe the kind of person who also goes for a 10-minute walk before they start work. So I think the higher protein foods can be that first step to eating more protein, to making the identity shift to the kind of person who does make all of these positive choices. But I think for where you and I are, coach, we're both like, well, fuck the high protein pasta. Just give me the bowl of pasta and I'll have some protein before and after that. It's fine.
What came to mind here is if protein is the gateway macro to the fitness industry. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, stay away from
the
that.
marijuana of fitness.
Of the macro world. Yeah, for sure. Of fitness, exactly. Yes, for sure. Better watch out for that protein stuff. It'll hook you into a better life. But yeah.
That is funny. Okay. So hopefully, I guess the last 10 minutes have been speaking specifically about protein, how to get more, or not how to get more, but like, why we need more, how much we actually need, why people are talking about it so much. Hopefully that helps. And seriously, just go onto Google or your AI of choice and type in, give me a list of high protein foods. If you need ideas, okay, we're not going to spend time like giving you what you can objectively easily find online in with a 10-second search.
Right.
Okay, let's answer the second question, coach. I think that we can answer this in just a few minutes. How do I track restaurant food when I don't have the calories?
Well, what I've suggested to some of our members and to just people in general is take a photo of the food, throw it into an AI with a prompt saying, hey, like, what do you think the caloric value as well as the protein content is of this meal? Give it something to reference it as and take it with a grain of salt, and not literal salt, but like just understand, again, like I mentioned earlier, this is an awareness tool. And even if it's plus or minus, because there's been a lot of the social media posts of just that saying, oh, AIs don't make accurate assumptions as to what, calorie content is. Yeah, no fucking kidding. By the way, there's also a 20% error anyway. So we don't even really know. Your 100-calorie snack could be 80 calories, it could be 120 calories. So not including like how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? Are you going to absorb all those calories? Maybe not. So we don't know.
Yeah.
So with that,
I like that.
Getting an assumption. Really, it's all we're trying to do.
What I would add on to there, put something in the photo for scale, right? Like the front of your credit card, for example, that doesn't have any information on it, like maybe just your name or something, next to the plates, so that the AI has something for scale and say, hey, that's a standard size credit card for scale. And one other little kind of like iPhone photography thing that I will let you know as well is to use the 2x zoom, because the 1x zoom can make things appear wider than they actually are when you take a photo. So do the 2x zoom, but hold your camera further away. I think that's a really simple approach. I like that. Another way of tracking it is just to type the name of the dish into MyFitnessPal and choose like one of the medium high entries. Like if you type in like spaghetti carbonara, that came to mind first, whatever that is you're having, just type that into MyFitnessPal. And if you have, let's say you have 4 options at 600, 800, 1,000, and 1,200 calories. Like choose the 1,000-calorie one that's near the top but not quite at the top. That's another really simple way of doing it. And then what I would also recommend is maybe you don't track, but maybe you use another method of portion control instead, which is all tracking is, portion control. Right? We're controlling how much you eat by tracking the calories. You could, if you wanted to, eat slowly and stop where you are feeling somewhere between 80 and 90% full. Because if you are able to truly tune into your hunger and stop where you are definitely no longer hungry, but where there still is definitely a bit of space if you wanted to eat something else, that's not going to put you into a surplus most likely that day. unless they really piled in the oils in that particular dish. And the way that you get around that is to, going back to protein now, to focus on the protein based dishes. Like, don't get the pasta dish, get the chicken, for example, and make sure there is a good amount of chicken and vegetables and some carbs on the plate. And yeah, like focus on the chicken and the vegetables first. I mean, you have some bites of the carbs, that's fine, but mostly focus on the protein and the veggie. Keep taking short breaks while you're eating. Put your fork down, take a sip of water, take part in the conversation, go back to eating. And yeah, when you're at that 80 to 90% fullness, that's when you stop. Keep it really simple.
I like that. We have data to support that those who chew more tend to eat less. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it's necessarily just a function of chewing more that drives that so much as potentially it passing that 20-minute interval where your brain actually can understand from your stomach that you're full. So taking that time, slowing down, not
Mm,
inhaling your food, being aware of your environment too, right?
yeah.
So if you're in a restaurant where there's music that's a little more upbeat, you'll tend to eat faster. So
Mm,
putting down your cutlery in between bites goes a long way. Taking a moment to use the washroom or the bathroom if you need to. Again, having a glass of water, having a moment, like you said, to engage in the conversation. Just putting your hands down for a moment instead of, inhaling your food, taking a moment to actually just appreciate it, noticing the flavors, noticing the taste, being
yeah.
because you didn't make it and you're paying for it, being a little bit more critical. Okay, like what am I tasting here? Do I think I can make this at home? Not like critical
Yeah.
from like a negative perspective, but just understanding like what's your palate noticing.
Yeah. I like wine tasting, basically. Treat it like wine tasting. Just don't
Exactly.
spit because no one likes that.
Oh, this food's great. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh dear, we just like losing dozens of followers with every single episode we put out.
Yeah,
Seriously,
for the one
that is
person who's
just
still
that is
listening.
disgusting. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay, something else that I like to do, and I've recommended to quite a few clients too. Halfway through the meal, just pause for literally 2 minutes. If you need to use your phone to time the 2 minutes, fine. Just time 2 minutes and just like take a break, sit back, have a sip of water, take part in the conversation. Give your brain and your body time to reconnect and to really reestablish like how hungry you are feeling. It's
Mm,
such a simple thing to do with a surprisingly high effect, with a high
mm.
return on that minimal effort to literally just stop eating for 2 minutes. Yeah, I like to do that personally as well, whether I'm in a deficit or not. Just to pause.
I feel like for myself, I tend to I'm suggesting all these things. However, when I go to a restaurant, I eat quickly. I know what's on my plate is what I'm having. I'm not having more than what I'm having. So it's kind of like, okay, let's get this out of the way so I can talk.
Yeah,
So that's my approach because I'll be aware of like, okay, I know how many I have an idea of how many calories are here, and I know that this is what I am looking for. Get it out of the way, and I'm good to go. So it just depends on what works for you. I think, um,
totally.
yeah, it just depends
That makes
on
sense.
personal preference. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Let's answer one more question, coach.
that's it.
At what point should I consider working with a coach versus trying to figure this out on my own?
Immediately, you should immediately reach out to us and just yeah, don't even try by yourself. To be honest, just it's so,
Oh dear. Let's talk about, first of all, who doesn't need a coach? Who does not need a coach? I mean, here's a very simple way of knowing whether you need a coach or not. Are you getting results? If you're getting
Mm,
results, awesome. You don't need us. That's number
yeah.
one. I guess the second group of people is, are you okay with where you are? Like, so even if you're trying and you're not getting results, if you're okay with that, don't hire a coach because it clearly isn't enough of a priority for you right now. And any kind of coach that you work with is going to require that you change what you're doing right now because by definition, what you are doing is not leading to the results that you, let's say, kind of want. And if it's not that important, you're going to be less likely to change. So don't waste your money by working with a coach if it's not a priority for you.
Yeah, I had a pretty funny discovery call a couple months ago with
Mm.
someone, and we just got on a call just to chat. And I had told him at the end of it, I'm like, I don't think you. I want to help you, but I don't think you need any help from me. Like I don't. Yeah, like you're doing great.
Yeah.
and you don't really have any specific goals at the moment other than just being consistent, which is, and I'm not gonna say just being consistent, like being consistent, which is huge.
Yeah.
And you're doing that. So, is there anything that I can at least answer for you? And they had said to me, Santo, you don't know how many times I've gotten onto calls like these just to talk to the person, get to know them, and then I get pitched something that I didn't ask for, and you not pitching me something and telling me that you know I don't need you almost makes me want to work with you more. I said, okay. I go, but you don't need it. And no, I know.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting conversation because, yeah, like you, not everybody needs a coach. I'm a firm
Totally.
believer in that. I think, like anything else, there's a time and place for anything. And if you have a very specific athletic performance or a specific body composition goal, great. But like you
Mm.
had mentioned, if you're content with where things are, there's no need to fix what's not broken either.
No. No. Absolutely.
Mm,
Also, another group of people who don't need coaching is maybe people who are getting results but don't realize it. Like
mm,
I've had calls before where I've spoken with people and they just started strength training. They got into a calorie deficit. They were eating protein and veggies, but the scale wasn't moving. It just
mm.
wasn't moving. But then when I asked about measurements and how clothing was fitting, I was like, oh yeah, my clothes are fitting way better. I'm lost inches. So I'm like, okay, this is called body recomposition. You're building muscle because you do strength training and you're losing fat because you're in a calorie deficit. But the net result is going to be lots of inches lost. It's going to be clothing fitting better, but it's going to be no change on the scale because muscle is up and fat is down. I'm like,
Mm.
you just need to keep doing what you're doing. You don't need me. You're getting results. So I think just making sure that you are not getting results before considering working with a coach, I think is um, another thing to definitely reflect on. Like, are you sure you're not getting results?
Yeah.
Because you may well be, you just don't have the right measuring tools, let's say.
Hmm. Yeah. I think that's important to recognize too, understanding what results look like to you. Because if it's predicated on the scale alone, there's nothing wrong with having a particular goal weight. However,
Mm.
you know, I think it's better. Like anytime I've worked with someone and they say, I want to be X weight, I ask them, okay, like, what does that number mean to you? Well, it's just a number I want to see on the scale. Okay, well, why is that? Well, like, what happens when you get to that weight? Well, I just feel like I would be more confident. I would fit better in my clothes. I would be able to take my shirt off at the beach if it's a male, or just feel confident enough to be in a bikini.
Mm.
Okay, so what if your weight stayed the same, but you felt all those things? Well, I'd be okay. Okay, so it's not about the
Great.
number, right? So
Yeah.
understanding what does that number really represent?
Yes. Yeah, is what it represents exactly.
Mm,
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say also for a lot of people, whatever is going on in their life maybe needs to be dealt with first before working with a coach. For example, if you're currently going through grief because you have recently lost somebody and
mm,
it's really recent, or a different kind of grief, let's say, maybe you are or have just gone through a divorce and that's still fairly new and you haven't quite processed what has happened. Like that needs to be dealt with. I would recommend in most cases by somebody who is not a coach, but who is actually a trained mental health professional.
yeah, agreed.
Like that is what you need. I don't think, I think there's a valid reason for you not eating well or training properly in those situations. And I don't think getting a coach is going to solve that because the emotions that you are experiencing in the situation that you're trying to deal with is beyond the education of a coach.
I think you could argue both, and I'm not implying that you should work with a coach instead of a
Yeah.
mental health professional by any means. And I'll say it again. I don't think that you should be working with a coach instead of a mental health professional. However, if you're getting adequate hydration, proper nutrition,
Mm.
adequate movement, you're going to create a physiological environment that's going to facilitate being in a better mental health state. However, your coping mechanisms and ability to turn inward and reflect on the things that you're navigating might be more challenging if you don't have the appropriate tools that you may not be aware of.
Yeah.
So, a good therapist will help you look at the circumstance that you're in and help you navigate that in a way that's going to be helpful in a way that's going to facilitate growth and overcoming that and acceptance and all these things that come with
Mm.
therapy.
Sure.
So, your 99% of coaches are not equipped with the ability to do
Yeah.
that. And I've also been in those situations where I've told clients, hey, listen, like, this is outside of my scope. I think it would be really beneficial for you to explore, a mental health professional. And it's been the best thing that I've, suggested to them. And in that, it unlocks the ability to work on all the things that I mentioned
Yeah.
because no longer using food as a coping mechanism. Great. No longer staying up late ruminating. Fantastic. Feeling like even in times where things are really challenging or could potentially be negative, there's reframing that happens. So it just ends up unlocking a lot of just the other facets of health that are outside of the things that us coaches can deal with too.
Absolutely. Agreed there, coach. Yeah. I think also anybody who is currently dealing with any kind of eating disorder, a
Hmm.
coach is not the solution there. That does
Hmm.
require a much more specific kind of mental health professional, as you were saying.
Of course.
Um, even like a dietitian may be a much better option for you, and or a mental health therapist. If you have a history of eating disorders, it really depends on where you are on that path, how recent it has been, what level of help you have had in the past. So I'm thinking, I'm not even going to put a percentage on it. It's if you do have that history of diagnosed eating disorders, it's maybe worth speaking to a specialist first before you reach out to a coach so that you and they can have a conversation and figure out whether you are in a better headspace to be able to deal with a coach. And again, coaches do not have the education, nor is it within their scope of practice to help with anybody currently going through and figuring out their eating disorder right now. So I think that's another category of person for whom to work with us, it may be a case of like just not yet, right? Maybe at some point in the future, but not yet. There are much more appropriate people to work with first.
Yeah. Or if your goal is strength based and it's something you don't want to address in terms of nutrition, cool. We don't have to
Sure.
prioritize any sort of
Yeah.
nutritional coaching. You
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
work on strength training alone.
Yeah.
That's also an
Absolutely.
option.
Yeah.
Um,
Totally. Cool. When does it become a good idea to consider working with a coach?
I think it becomes a good idea when you feel like you're not seeing any sort of progress, like proper progress. You're taking measurements,
Yeah.
you're taking photos, you're tracking your nutrition, and things feel kind of stale. And you're
Yeah.
like, I feel like something's missing and I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Right. And that might be even just talking to a coach and understanding, what their style, like we were just talking about therapists, there are
Mm.
different therapists for different things that you're looking to do. But in that, there's still a human
Yeah.
element to it. So making sure that the person resonates with you, their perspective, who they work with. So it might be relative to like, hey, you know what? I would love to do a 5K. And I've done them before, but I'd like to do it better than the last time I did it. Cool. Some sort of
Mm.
athletic goal. Right. Or
Right.
if you're someone who experiences back pain. Okay, you know what? I want to work with someone who really focuses on improving your back pain. Great. Maybe it's like the people that we work with. You're someone who's super busy, doesn't have a lot of time. You navigate a lot of challenges with your health and kind of repeated cycling of going up and down the same 5, 10, 20 pounds often, and you want to get that under control. Then that might be the time for you to
Yeah.
introduce a coach for you.
Totally. Yeah. I think if you've been trying on your own for, let's say, 6 months, I think that's a
Mm.
good number to put on that. Around 6 months, and you're not getting anywhere. I think it's time to accept that you're at the point where you would get better results with a coach, most likely.
What does a coach do? A coach helps you move towards your goal in a more sustainable way faster so you don't run into the same mistakes that most people get
Yeah.
into or end up going backwards in because they just didn't know. Like you don't know what you don't know.
It's the
But a
closest thing
coach,
to a shortcut that there is.
exactly. And
Yeah,
what's the shortest way is what, coach? Often the longest route, right?
exactly.
So helping you find a way to get into a rhythm that you're going to be able to maintain into perpetuity. You know what? I feel good, coach. We've worked for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year. I'm good. Great. That's what we want. And we say this all the time. Our job is to get fired. So this way you don't need it.
Yeah,
We don't need to do never, never plans for people. How do you get
yeah,
them to a place where they're like, I feel good. I feel confident in the plan that I've gone through and I continue and I'm able to continue to implement. Thank you so much. See you later.
exactly. Yeah. And some people can do that on their own. They can
Mhm.
try and they can use our free content on Instagram or our other resources, and they can get the results without needing to pay us a penny. And that's great. If you can do that, then awesome. If you have been trying though for months and months, let's call it 6 months, and you're just not getting anywhere, a coach is going to help you see where those blind spots are and show you how to apply that general information that you have taken from our Instagram content and how to apply it to you specifically. Also, if you have a very specific fitness goal, let's say doing pull ups, deadlifting twice your own body weight, doing some of the more gymnastic style stuff that I see you do, coach, like, walking on your hands and that kind of thing. I don't know if it would be a good idea to try and figure out some of those things on your own. It's potentially dangerous, right? So when trying to figure stuff out on your own becomes potentially dangerous, that's when I would maybe hire a coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think anything that you're new to that has a high degree of risk that could potentially end in some sort of injury or anything that may negatively affect your quality of life,
Yeah.
you would more than likely benefit from getting some advice from somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. But the question is, at what point should I consider working with a coach versus trying to figure this out on my own? Let's assume we're just talking about weight loss. I mean, like, try on your own first. That's fine. Try on your own first, unless you literally don't have the time to figure it all out, which is what a lot of people that we work, not a lot, but like, let's say that, some people work with us who could figure it out on their own if they wanted to. They are just so incredibly busy with their job, with their family, that for them, outsourcing this to us in terms of how many calories to eat, how much protein to eat, how to help them set up their different meals, how to train, when to train, what to do, how to progressively overload, how to update their workers every 4 to 6 weeks or so, how to bring them back up to maintenance, how to have them stop tracking calories forever. They think, you know what, it's worth investing so that I don't have to figure this out on my own. Because figure it out on my own is going to take me years, or I could do this in months with a coach.
Yeah. I think like anything else, you're if you get a coach, you're essentially purchasing an education because a good
Yeah,
coach will teach you how to do it. And once you have that and you've had success with it and the approach that you've taken with it, you just continue to apply those same approaches over time.
exactly. Yeah. Coach Santo, thank you for today. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you are interested in coaching, just tap the link in the show notes. It'll take you to a page where you can book a short 10-minute call with me. And that is actually with me, not with a team member or anything. And in that 10-minute call, we'll try to figure out whether we think I can actually help you or not. And if we don't think that's the case, that's totally fine. I can always try and point you in the right direction. But if we do think that I can help you, we'll book a longer 1 hour call where we'll do a much deeper dive into your current situation, your background, what you want to see happen while working with a coach. And on that call, I will create a plan for you, which I will talk you through at the end of the call. And if you feel like you want to move forward after that, we can discuss what that would look like. Have a wonderful week, everybody. See you next time.
Thanks for listening, everyone.